Millions of tourists go on trips every year, but what happens when their vacations end in unexpected tragedy? In this video, we'll see the scary stories of people who went on vacation and never came back. From the beaches of Thailand to the mountains of Peru, these tales will send chills down your spine. Get ready for 2 hours of the most disturbing deaths of tourists abroad, where happy trips turn into horror stories. It was May 2nd, 2024, when South Korean tourist Roh Yui-jong was last seen at a nightclub in Bangkok's bustling Royal City Avenue, RCA district. The 34-year-old, known for his frequent visits to Thailand and his Thai wife, was enjoying the vibrant nightlife when everything took a dark turn. By the next day, Roh had vanished, setting off a chain of events that led to a gruesome discovery and an international manhunt. Roh had arrived in Thailand on April 30th, planning to stay until May 13th. However, his plans were violently disrupted. On May 7th, Roh's mother received a chilling call from an unknown number. The caller demanded 3 million baht, or approximately $100,000, in exchange for Roh's life, claiming he had drowned their drugs. Terrified, she contacted the South Korean embassy in Thailand, which then alerted Thai authorities. Roh's wife, who had last seen him at the nightclub, provided critical information. Surveillance footage revealed Roh leaving the club around 2 a.m. on May 2nd with 2 men. The men were seen guiding Roh into a rented car, a gray Honda City which headed towards Pattaya. This was the last known sighting of Roh alive. By May 4th, Roh's captors had checked into a rented accommodation near the Mabprachan Reservoir in Pattaya. Surveillance footage showed them purchasing a black plastic barrel and ropes. Around 9 p.m. that night, a pickup truck covered with a black cloth left the accommodation, returning an hour later without its ominous cargo. This footage, combined with the ransom call, painted a grim picture for the investigators. On May 11th, police divers searched the Mabprachan Reservoir and discovered a black plastic barrel weighted down with cement. Inside, they found a man's body. Preliminary identification suggested it was Roh, but confirmation would come later through DNA comparison with samples from his family. The investigation intensified. By May 9th, one suspect had fled Thailand, and another was later arrested in Phnom Penh, Cambodia. The third suspect was believed to have crossed into Myanmar illegally. Thai and South Korean police worked tirelessly to track them down. On May 14th, DNA results confirmed the body was indeed Roh Yui-jong. His 10 fingers had been cut off, presumably to prevent fingerprint identification. Despite this brutal attempt to conceal his identity, the DNA match with his father and sister left no doubt. The suspects, identified as Lee Roon, Lee Yong-jin, and Kim Hyung-won, were now the focus of an international manhunt. Lee Roon was captured in Jeongo City, South Korea on May 12th. Lee Yong-jin was arrested in Phnom Penh on May 14th. The third suspect, Kim Hyung-won, was believed to have fled to war-torn Myanmar. The case revealed that Roh had been lured into a criminal scheme involving a haircut and massage business that may have had illicit activities. However, it was unclear if he had invested in this venture. His friend insisted that Roh was never involved in drug abuse, suggesting he had been deceived by the gang. Police reconstructed the timeline carefully. Roh had been abducted from RCA, transported to Pattaya, and held at the rented accommodation. The suspects purchased the materials to dispose of his body, eventually dumping it in the reservoir. This careful planning and execution pointed to a premeditated crime, likely driven by financial motives. The international aspect of the case complicated the investigation. Coordination between Thai, South Korean, and Cambodian authorities was crucial. Extradition processes were initiated to bring the suspects back to Thailand to face justice. Interpol red notices were issued for the suspects, ensuring they would be apprehended if they attempted to enter other countries. Despite the arrest, the motive behind Roh's murder remained unclear. The suspects faced charges of premeditated murder, illegal detention, and concealing a body. Thai police continued to gather evidence, including testimonies from witnesses and CCTV footage, to build a robust case. The discovery of Roh's body in such a gruesome manner shocked both Thailand and South Korea. It highlighted the dangers of falling into the traps set by criminal gangs and the extreme measures these criminals would take to cover their tracks. The case also underscored the importance of international cooperation in solving crimes that cross borders. It was November 1st, 2021 in Playa del Carmen, Mexico. Joe Dobson, a 19-year-old British teenager, was spending time with his friends in this seaside resort town in the Quintana Roo region. He had been enjoying his stay in Mexico, exploring the local beaches, shops, and restaurants. However, this day would take a tragic turn that none of his friends could have anticipated. Joe had severe allergies to sesame, eggs, milk, and peanuts. He always carried his EpiPen with him, a vital tool in case of an allergic reaction. His friends Harriet, Preston, and Ryan were fully aware of his medical condition and the seriousness of his allergies. The group had spent the day relaxing on the beach and wandering through the local shops. By the evening, they were ready to have dinner at a fusion restaurant they had visited before, confident in the safety of the food there. Joe was particularly careful when it came to ordering food. He had learned enough Spanish to communicate his dietary restrictions clearly. That evening, he ordered a vegetarian burrito and stressed multiple times, both in English and Spanish, that his meal must not contain sesame. The waiter acknowledged his request, and Joe felt reassured that he had done everything possible to ensure his safety. When the food arrived, Joe immediately sensed something was wrong. He inspected his burrito using the flashlight on his phone and felt uneasy about its appearance. Trusting his instincts, he sent the burrito back, insisting again that it should not contain sesame. The waiter took the plate back to the kitchen and returned with a new burrito. Joe examined it again and took a bite, followed by 2 more. Within moments, he knew something was terribly wrong. His throat began to itch and swell, a clear sign that his burrito still contained sesame. Panicking, Joe rushed to the bar staff, explaining in broken English that he needed an ambulance. However, the staff seemed indifferent to his pleas. They suggested he drink a concoction of honey and lemon, a remedy that would do nothing to alleviate his severe allergic reaction. Joe, desperate and struggling to breathe, complied just to keep them quiet. Realizing that he had left his EpiPen at their Airbnb, Joe and his friends decided to rush back to retrieve it. They hailed a taxi, but the driver moved casually, not understanding the urgency of the situation. Every second counted, and this delay was critical. Joe's breathing became more labored, and his friends could see the fear in his eyes. By the time they reached the apartment complex, Joe was barely able to stand. He collapsed near the elevator, gasping for air. Ryan sprinted upstairs to grab the EpiPen, while Harriet tried to comfort Joe, who was now crawling into the elevator. When Ryan returned, they administered the EpiPen, but it was too late. Joe's body had already gone into anaphylactic shock, and the injection was not enough to reverse the severe reaction. They called for help, and a police car eventually took Joe to the local hospital. The doctors did everything they could, but Joe's condition was too critical. He lost consciousness and died that evening. The inquest into Joe's death revealed a series of tragic missteps. Coroner Mark Taylor summarized the events, highlighting that Joe had done everything in his power to prevent the incident. He had communicated his allergies clearly and repeatedly, both in Spanish and English. The restaurant staff, however, had failed to understand the gravity of his situation. Their negligence and lack of basic first aid knowledge contributed significantly to the tragedy. Joe's friends, Harriet and Ryan, provided detailed accounts of the evening. Harriet recalled how Joe had always celebrated her achievements, no matter how small and how careful he was with his allergies. She described the chilling moment when Joe realized his burrito contained sesame and his desperate attempts to get help from the restaurant staff. Ryan confirmed her story, adding that the staff's casual attitude and the taxi driver's slow response only worsened the situation. Coroner Taylor noted that there was a crucial 10 to 15-minute gap between the onset of Joe's reaction and the administration of the EpiPen. While it's unclear if the outcome would have been different with immediate medical attention, the delay certainly did not help. The coroner's report emphasized that Joe had acted unwittingly in consuming the food containing sesame, and the restaurant's failure to heed his warnings was a significant factor in his death. The idyllic waters off Ambergris Cay proved tragically deceptive for 17-year-old Logan Salon Pratt. What was supposed to be a dream tropical vacation quickly descended into unimaginable horror when the Oklahoma teen was struck and killed by a tour boat while swimming with her mother on February 14th. As the grieving Pratt family reels from the devastating loss, a complex legal case is taking shape around the circumstances leading up to Logan's untimely death. Both authorities and citizens of the Belizean island paradise are grappling with difficult questions about safety protocols, maritime rules and regulations, and the urgent need for emergency medical resources for visitors. At the center of the high-profile case is boat captain Jesse Smith, identified as the operator of the vessel that inflicted the fatal injuries on Logan that Valentine's Day. According to an official report, Smith has been taken into custody as investigators build a potential criminal case against him. However, a small group of supporters has alleged that Smith was simply a victim of circumstance. They claim the area where the incident occurred off Mata Chica Resort is a known boat traffic lane. where it is sometimes difficult to see anyone in the water when seas are choppy, as they were during the tragic encounter. Smith's family has also retained legal counsel, hoping the investigation ultimately clears the experienced tour guide of any liability in what they insist was an unavoidable accident. At the same time, they've expressed condolences to the devastated Pratt family over the horrific loss of the energetic teen. But Logan's mother, Tamra, paints a different picture of the fateful day's events based on her harrowing account. She told local reporters that she and her daughter were not recklessly swimming in a marked boat lane, but rather wading in shallow waters just offshore after snorkeling near the pier when disaster struck. Tamra claimed that not only was Smith's boat traveling at a high rate of speed with no one positioned as a lookout on the bow, but the captain failed to render proper aid after the collision. She alleges that Smith was rude, cursing and yelling at them, instead of immediately calling emergency services or attempting to stop Logan's bleeding. Tamra recounted the distressing events, detailing how, despite her efforts to seek help, the boat operator remained unresponsive and failed to provide any medical aid. Alongside another passenger, Tamra took it upon herself to attend to the severely injured teenager until they could reach a local clinic for further assistance. It was at that private medical facility in downtown San Pedro where Tamra said staff proved ill-prepared to treat her daughter's traumatic injuries properly. She tearfully questioned why more tourism dollars aren't being funneled into improving emergency training and resources to handle such crises. She noted that Belize has no Level 1, 2, or even Level 3 trauma centers in the country. Logan tragically succumbed to her injuries, leaving her shattered family to grapple with indescribable grief, along with an annoying search for answers and accountability. As the legal case now shifts to the Office of Belize's Director of Public Prosecutions, law enforcement hopes the coroner's report definitively mapping Logan's injuries and cause of death will help illuminate what transpired that fateful afternoon. The findings indicate the teen suffered hypovolemic shock due to external injuries from multiple sharp propeller-type wounds that caused catastrophic blood loss. While the agonizing details likely bring little solace to the Pratts, they could prove instrumental in determining the viability of charges against Jesse Smith and establishing culpability in the incident. Officials have made no formal accusations of wrongdoing against the tour guide yet. In the meantime, Logan's loved ones continue keeping her bright spirit alive through memorials and a clarion call for improved boater safety measures throughout the islands. Her mother is imploring visitors to take note of the absence of emergency medical facilities, a harsh reality she claims played a role in this preventable tragedy. It was December 13, 2019, in Cancun, Mexico. Dean Wright, a 33-year-old from Westerhope, Newcastle, was on vacation with a friend. Dean was known for his height, standing at 6 feet 8 inches, and his fun-loving, generous personality. He loved to chat with people and had a knack for making others laugh. This was his third time visiting Mexico, a place he enjoyed and felt comfortable in. But this trip would tragically be his last. Dean had spent the day by the pool with his friend and some American holidaymakers. The atmosphere was lively and relaxed, typical of a sunny day in Cancun. Dean was in high spirits, enjoying the company and the warm weather. As the day turned into evening, Dean continued to socialize, moving from the pool area to various spots around the resort. That night, Dean interacted with an English hen party, Americans, Canadians, and a Russian. He even shared a cigarette with the Russian outside the hotel's sports bar in the early hours of December 14th. Dean was the life of the party, chatting and laughing with everyone around. It seemed like a typical night in Cancun, filled with new acquaintances and good times. However, the timeline of events between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. is unclear. Dean's family believes he may have been assaulted during this period. What is known is that shortly after this time frame, Dean's body was found on a luggage trolley near the lifts at the 2i-operated Hotel RIU Cancun. Guests at the hotel were horrified to see his 6 foot 8 inch frame flanked by security guards. The news of Dean's death reached his parents, Maria and Paul, back in the UK. They received a devastating phone call informing them that their only son was dead, with no explanation given. Dean's family was left in shock and confusion. They described him as a fun-loving, generous Geordie who loved life and enjoyed chatting with people. He had been on holiday, a time meant for relaxation and enjoyment, but instead, it ended in tragedy. Despite police investigations in both the Northeast and Mexico, the circumstances surrounding Dean's death remain unclear. Nearly a year later, his parents still have not received a death certificate, and they are left with more questions than answers. In a statement, the family expressed their frustration and sorrow, saying they received the devastating phone call informing them that their beloved Dean had died, with no explanation, only that he was dead. They described the situation as very unclear, confusing, and terrible, stating that they cannot properly grieve without knowing the truth about what happened. In their search for answers, Dean's family turned to social media, hoping to track down any witnesses who might shed light on his final hours. They enlisted the help of former senior detective David Swindle and his team at David Swindle Crime Solutions, who support families of those killed abroad. Additionally, they sought assistance from lawyer Shane Smith, a litigation executive at Slater and Gordon, to help navigate the inquest process. Shane Smith emphasized the importance of gathering as much information as possible to present Dean's final movements to the coroner. He stressed that the family is desperate to discover what happened to Dean and cannot do so without the help of people who were there at the time. Smith noted that it has been a long 12 months of questions for Dean's family, and they are eager to provide them with some answers. Dean's family set up an appeal website describing him as a bit of a joker who loved to make people laugh, and a man who lived life to the fullest. Dean had a special bond with his mother, Maria. There was only a day that went by without him being in contact with her, either by phone or text. He loved music and attended many gigs and festivals, including Glastonbury, which he visited with his family. Dean saw himself as a DJ and invested in his decks. Dean's popularity was evident at his final celebration of life, held in January 2020. Nearly 500 friends and family members gathered to honor his memory. Dean had worked as an electrician and inspector, traveling all over the world, from Denmark to New Orleans and, of course, Mexico. His family cherished the 33 precious years they had with him and were determined to find out the truth about his death. It was supposed to be a fun getaway with friends, but for 25-year-old Shanquella Robinson from Charlotte, North Carolina, that fateful trip to Mexico in late October 2022 turned into a nightmare that ended her life far too soon. Robinson and 6 friends had traveled to the resort town of Cabo San Lucas to soak up the sun and enjoy some vacation revelry. However, a desperate call went out for medical assistance less than 24 hours after arriving at their luxury rental villa. Robinson had been found unconscious and unresponsive in the room. When the doctor arrived, Robinson's friends claimed she had consumed too much alcohol and became ill. Despite the physician's recommendation to transport her to the hospital, the group insisted she receive treatment at the villa instead. Tragically, Robinson's condition only worsened after a frightening seizure. Paramedics rushed to the scene, performing CPR and other life-saving measures, but it was too late. Shanquella Robinson was pronounced dead that evening from what was initially ruled as alcohol poisoning. Her family back home immediately sensed something was amiss as details from Robinson's friends continuously changed and conflicted with one another. Some said she was discovered on the floor, while others claimed she was found in bed or a chair. Their stories about seeking medical care also didn't add up. Then the shocking autopsy results came in. Robinson's death wasn't caused by alcohol at all, but rather a broken neck and spinal cord injury. As if that wasn't disturbing enough, an appalling video began circulating online showing one of Robinson's female friends savagely beating the young woman while she was naked in their villa. The horrific footage left Robinson's loved ones disgusted and demanding answers. How could such a violent assault have occurred without her supposed friends intervening or seeking immediate emergency care? Why would they have lied about the circumstances leading to her death? Mexican authorities reopened their investigation and determined that Robinson was the victim of femicide, directly killed by a member of her travel group. They issued an arrest warrant for the direct aggressor and sought to deport that individual to Mexico. However, over 6 months later, no arrests have been made, and the U.S. Department of Justice has announced it will not pursue federal charges, stating there is insufficient evidence to prove a viable criminal case. For Shanquella's grieving mother, Salamandra, and the rest of her heartbroken family, this lack of justice has been another excruciating blow. They feel the system has failed them at every turn, leaving them to pursue accountability on their own relentlessly. Tears streamed down her mother's face as she spoke to the reporters, her voice heavy with emotion. She expressed the devastation her daughter Shanquella had endured, feeling as though her life had been shattered and disregarded. The family's attorney echoed these sentiments, denouncing the responses from both Mexican and U.S. authorities as a profound injustice for Shanquella's family. Although no arrests have materialized, Robinson's loved ones refuse to give up their quest to honor Shanquella's legacy. They have pleaded with the Biden administration and government officials to prioritize this tragic case and provide transparency about the investigation's progress. At a rally commemorating 6 months since her sister's tragic death, Robinson's sister passionately called for action, urging authorities to take proactive measures such as implementing tracers on individuals and holding accountable those responsible by placing them in jail. Her words resonated with the gathered crowd, echoing the frustration and demand for justice in the wake of the loss. So where does the pursuit of justice stand for Shanquella Robinson? Why haven't the friends who were present and the suspected perpetrator captured on video been apprehended? What further action can the U.S. and Mexican governments take to finally provide this heartbroken family with the answers and closure they so desperately crave? Only time will tell if Shanquella's story prompts the justice her loved ones continue fighting for. Eva Liu, a 21-year-old from Naperville, Illinois, embarked on an eagerly anticipated trip to Neuschwanstein Castle in Bavaria with her close friend and classmate Kesley Chang. She completed her junior and high school education and earned her bachelor's and master's degrees in computer science from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Eva was excited to unwind from the stresses of academia before starting her professional career as a software engineer at Microsoft. On a clear day on June 14, 2023, they decided to hike near the Marienbrücke Bridge, a narrow footbridge 300 feet above a gorge, offering breathtaking views of Neuschwanstein Castle, one of Germany's most famous tourist attractions. The day's excitement was palpable as they marveled at the stunning scenery. However, their adventure took a tragic turn when they met a third party. While hiking near the Marienbrücke Bridge, they met Troy Philip Bowling, a 30-year-old U.S. national who conversed with them. Bowling, seemingly friendly and knowledgeable about the area, told the young women about a secluded trail that led to a good lookout point, with a much better view of the castle for selfies. Trusting his expertise, Eva and Kesley followed him off the main path. As they walked, the trail became increasingly isolated, but Bowling reassured them that they were close to a fantastic spot. Once Bowling was sure they were far enough from the main trail, he suddenly turned on Eva, pushing her to the ground. He tried to undress her with the explicit intention of assaulting her. Stunned and terrified, Eva struggled to fend him off. Kesley, seeing her friend in danger, rushed to help. A desperate scuffle ensued, and Bowling, much more vital and intent on his attack, choked Kesley, rendering her helpless before pushing her down a steep slope. Kesley tumbled approximately 50 meters, sustaining a head injury along with multiple bruises and scrapes, but she survived. Meanwhile, Bowling turned his attention back to Eva. He strangled her until she lost consciousness, and then proceeded to assault her. After his brutal attack, he callously pushed her down the slope as well. Eva's fall was fatal, exacerbated by the trauma she had already endured. When rescuers eventually reached the scene, they found Kesley injured but alive, while Eva had succumbed to her injuries. The violent attack left the idyllic scene marred by tragedy, turning a joyous trip into a nightmare. A mountain rescue team reached both women after the harrowing incident. Kesley Chang, who was responsive, was quickly taken to a hospital for treatment. Eva Liu, in critical condition, was airlifted by helicopter to another hospital. Despite the medical team's best efforts, she succumbed to her injuries overnight. The suspect, Troy Philip Bowling, fled the scene but was apprehended shortly after in the vicinity. Bowling's trial began with his admission of guilt to charges of murder and sexual assault. His lawyer, Philip Mueller, acknowledged the gravity of his client's actions, stating that Bowling had committed an unfathomable crime. The prosecution presented evidence, including a laptop and cell phone seized from Bowling, which contained child sexual abuse material. Authorities confirmed that the two women had no prior acquaintance with Bowling before their fateful meeting near Neuschwanstein. During the trial, Mueller argued that Bowling's actions were not intended. He acted spontaneously and is deeply ashamed of his actions, Mueller told the court. Despite this defense, the charges against Bowling were severe. He faced counts of murder, sexual assault with fatal consequences, attempted murder, and possession of child sexual abuse videos. In Germany, a murder conviction carries a maximum sentence of life imprisonment. The additional charges only compounded the severity of Bowling's impending sentence.
It was a balmy morning on March 30th, 2024, when Gail Matson, a spirited 79-year-old woman from Minnesota, went on what she anticipated would be the adventure of a lifetime. With her characteristic enthusiasm for exploration and a heart full of anticipation, she joined a group of fellow tourists for a game drive through the sprawling expanse of Kafue National Park in Zambia. Gail loved to travel, and everyone who knew her was aware of it. She was an active member of her Minnesota community and was famous for her adventurous nature and endless energy. Whether she was planning church events or taking part in her bridge club in Sun City West, Arizona, Gail lived her life with a contagious enthusiasm that motivated everyone around her. The safari in Africa had long been a dream of Gail's, a final trip to mark her 80th year. Despite her age, she remained undeterred by the prospect of venturing into the heart of the African wilderness, eager to witness the continent's renowned wildlife in its natural habitat. With her daughter Rona Wells by her side, Gail set off on a journey that she hoped would be the crowning achievement of a life filled with exploration and discovery. As the safari vehicle traversed the terrain of Kafue National Park, Gail's excitement grew with each passing moment. The vast savanna stretched out before her, teeming with life and possibility. It was a scene straight out of a nature documentary, with towering acacia trees dotting the landscape and the distant silhouette of grazing antelope on the horizon. However, amidst the tranquil beauty of the African wilderness, danger lurked in the form of a lone bull elephant, separated from its herd and agitated by the presence of the approaching safari truck. Unbeknownst to the tourists, they were about to encounter a deadly force of nature that would shatter their idyllic adventure. In a horrifying moment captured on video, the massive elephant charged toward the unsuspecting safari truck, its immense form a blur of fury and aggression. Panic erupted among the tourists as the elephant closed in, its thundering footsteps echoing across the plains. "Oh my goodness," one tourist explained, while another noted, "It's coming fast." The game ranger, realizing the impending danger, braced for impact and brought the vehicle to an abrupt halt. But the elephant, fueled by rage, was undeterred. With a swift motion, it swung its mighty tusks, hooking them under the bodywork of the truck and flipping it onto its side with terrifying force. The tourists, trapped in the chaos, screamed in terror as the vehicle toppled over, their once-in-a-lifetime safari descending into a nightmare. In the aftermath of the attack, the true extent of the tragedy became apparent. Gail Matson, the vibrant soul whose enthusiasm for life had brought her to Africa's doorstep, lay among the wreckage, her dreams shattered by the brutal force of nature. Despite desperate efforts to save her, she succumbed to the injuries inflicted by the enraged elephant. As her loved ones grappled with the shock of her untimely passing, tributes poured in from friends and family, painting a portrait of a woman who lived life to the fullest. She had told us that this safari was going to be her last big adventure. Her friend John Longaboth recalled, his voice tinged with sorrow. "To be honest, I don't know if she'd slow down or not, but at least you wouldn't be traveling as far, probably." For the other tourists involved in the terrifying incident, the scars, both physical and emotional, would serve as a haunting reminder of the dangers that were hidden and present while exploring in the wild. Wilderness, the company responsible for the ill-fated safari, expressed profound sorrow over the tragic event, extending condolences to Matson's family and offering support to those affected by the incident. As investigations into the attack unfolded, questions lingered about the circumstances that led to such a devastating outcome. How could a routine game drive turn into a deadly encounter with one of Africa's most iconic creatures? What factors contributed to the elephant's aggression? And could the tragedy have been prevented?
In 2017, Jay Austin and Lauren Geoghegan, both 29, decided to leave behind their conventional lives in Washington, D.C., to embark on an extraordinary journey. They quit their jobs, Jay from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, where he had worked for 7 years, and Lauren from her position as a senior admissions officer at Georgetown University. The couple set off to cycle worldwide, documenting their travels on their blog and sharing the wonders and challenges of their adventures. Their first significant trip took them to South Africa, where they enjoyed the vibrant landscapes and rich cultures. From there, they moved on to Morocco, eager to explore the Casablanca Mountains by bicycle. Acts of kindness became common in Jay and Lauren's travels. They frequently encountered strangers who extended remarkable generosity, which they reciprocated with enthusiasm and gratitude. However, their adventure took a tragic turn on July 29, 2018, as they cycled through Asia. The morning of July 29, 2018, dawned like any other for Austin and Geoghegan. Their latest destination was Tajikistan, a mountainous Central Asian country known for its stunning landscapes and rich history. Accompanied by two other cyclists, a Swiss citizen and a Dutch national, they were traversing the region's winding roads about 60 miles south of the capital, Dushanbe. Their travels were chronicled in a blog that captivated readers with tales of their adventures and reflections on the world. One particular entry stood out, a Q&A segment discussing the potential dangers of bike touring. Relatively speaking, bike touring is really safe, they wrote, exuding optimism and faith in humanity. They acknowledged the possibility of encountering dangers like diseases or wildlife, but dismissed the notion that people posed a significant threat. The greatest danger to us, any of us really, are humans in cars, who kill more people than anything else in the world. Tragically, their words turned prophetic. As the four cyclists pedaled along the road that day, a Daewoo sedan approached. Without warning, the driver allegedly swerved, ramming the car into the cyclists. The impact was devastating, but the horror didn't end there. The occupants of the vehicle emerged, brandishing knives, and launched a brutal assault on the injured cyclists. In the aftermath of the attack, the assailants fled, driving their blood-stained car down a remote road towards the Afghanistan border. Their escape brought them to the small village of Tutbulak. The villagers, noticing the damaged car and its suspicious occupants, alerted authorities. When the men abandoned the vehicle, the villagers followed, ensuring they couldn't disappear into the wilderness. Confronted by authorities, the situation escalated. One of the attackers was killed after resisting arrest. The remaining four fled, but their escape was short-lived. The next day, 3 more were located and killed. The final attacker, Hussein Abdusamadov, was captured and taken into custody. It was soon revealed that these men had pledged allegiance to ISIS in a video filmed in Tajikistan before the attack. Abdusamadov was identified as the ringleader. In a chilling interview, he expressed no remorse for the killings, firmly standing by his actions. His trial was swift and conducted behind closed doors, leading to a life sentence, Tajikistan's harshest punishment. This brutal attack on innocent travelers cast a dark shadow over the region. It was a stark reminder of the unpredictable dangers lurking even in the most beautiful places. For Austin and Geoghegan, their dream trip ended in tragedy, a sobering contrast to the hopeful, adventurous spirit that had driven them to explore the world on 2 wheels.
It was December 2023, a seemingly ordinary day in the Bahamas, as the gentle waves lapped against the shores of Cable Beach. Amidst the crystal-clear waters and swaying palm trees, Lauren Erickson Van Wart, a 44-year-old newlywed from Boston, Massachusetts, went on what was supposed to be a blissful honeymoon with her beloved husband. Little did they know, their simple paradise would soon be shattered by a harrowing encounter with one of nature's most powerful predators. Lauren, a dedicated textbook editor with a passion for mathematics, had tied the knot with her partner just 1 day prior to the tragedy. They had chosen the luxurious Sandals Royal Bahamian Resort as the backdrop for their celebration of love, seeking peace and privacy as a couple in the beauty of the Caribbean. However, fate had other plans in store for them. On that morning, Lauren and her husband ventured into the crystal-clear waters off Cable Beach, eager to explore the breathtaking marine life that the Bahamas had to offer. Equipped with a paddleboard and brimming with excitement, they paddled out into the open sea, unaware of the danger lurking beneath the surface. As they glided across the waters, laughter and joy echoed between them, their love buoyed by the gentle rhythm of the waves. However, amidst their carefree bliss, a shadow stirred beneath the surface. In an instant, the morning turned into a scene of chaos and terror. A predator, swift and merciless, emerged from the depths, his primal instincts driving it to strike with deadly force. Lauren, caught unaware, found herself ensnared in the jaws of a shark, her screams of terror drowned out by the waters of the ocean. Witnesses on the shore looked on in horror as the tragedy unfolded before their eyes. A lifeguard stationed nearby sprang into action, his heart pounding with nervousness as he raced to the couple's aid. With swift determination, he navigated the treacherous waters, his rescue boat cutting through the waves. As he reached the stricken couple, the lifeguard wasted no time in pulling them aboard, his hands steady despite the chaos that surrounded him. Yet despite his efforts, it was too late. Lauren had suffered grievous injuries to her right side, her body battered and broken by the savage onslaught of the shark. Emergency services arrived on the scene, their expressions grim with determination as they fought to save a life hanging in the balance. CPR was administered in rhythmic compressions, a desperate attempt to revive a body ravaged by a violent assault. Despite their efforts, it was all in vain. Lauren Erickson von Wart, beloved wife and esteemed colleague, succumbed to her injuries, her life extinguished in the blink of an eye by nature's fury. The once tranquil shores of Cable Beach bore witness to a tragedy that would haunt the memories of all who beheld it. In the aftermath of the tragedy, grief rippled through both the local community and Lauren's colleagues at Curriculum Associates. Rob Waldron, CEO of the company, expressed profound sorrow at the loss of a cherished colleague whose dedication to education had touched the lives of many.
Sarai Sierra, a 33-year-old American woman from Staten Island, New York, embarked on her first solo trip abroad in January 2013, driven by her deep passion for photography. Her journey to Istanbul, Turkey was meant to be a thrilling adventure, with the promise of capturing the city's rich history and vibrant culture through her lens. However, this trip, which was supposed to be a story of artistic exploration and personal growth, ended in a tragedy that shook her family and friends to their core. Originally, Sarai had planned to travel with a friend. However, she decided to venture out alone when those plans fell through at the last minute. Undeterred by the change in plans, Sarai embraced the opportunity to explore Istanbul's iconic landmarks and hidden gems on her terms. With its blend of ancient architecture and bustling modern life, Istanbul was a perfect canvas for her photographic aspirations. Throughout her stay in Istanbul, Sarai maintained regular contact with her family. She shared her experiences and excitement through messages, video chats, and social media posts, giving her loved ones a glimpse into her journey. Sarai's trip was scheduled to end on January 21, 2013, when she was supposed to return home to New York. However, as the day came and went, there was no word from her. When she failed to board her flight back, her family immediately knew something was wrong. Stephen Sierra, Sarai's husband, and her brother, David Jimenez, were gripped by an overwhelming sense of urgency. They decided to travel to Istanbul to assist in the search for Sarai. The city, the backdrop of Sarai's adventure, became the center of their frantic efforts to find her. In Istanbul, Stephen and David worked closely with local authorities, distributing flyers and seeking any information that could lead them to Sarai. The story of the missing American woman quickly garnered media attention, both in Turkey and internationally. The Turkish police launched an extensive investigation, searching through CCTV footage and interviewing locals who might have seen Sarai. As days turned into weeks, the anxiety and fear for Sarai's well-being grew. Her family clung to hope, imagining that she might still be alive and waiting to be found. Yet despite their relentless efforts, leads remained scarce, and the reality of her disappearance became increasingly grim. After an extensive search that lasted nearly 2 weeks, Sarai Sierra's body was discovered on February 2, 2013, near the remnants of the ancient city walls in the Sarayburnu district of Istanbul, Turkey. This area, known for its historical significance and frequent tourist visits, became the tragic endpoint of Sarai's first international trip. The discovery brought a heartbreaking conclusion to an ordeal that had captivated her home community on Staten Island and the international public. When Sarai first went missing, her family and friends were immediately alarmed. She had left her passport, clothes, phone chargers, and medical cards in her rented room in Beyoğlu, indicating she had not planned to disappear voluntarily. This raised immediate red flags about her well-being. The last images of Sarai alive were captured by surveillance cameras on January 21st, showing her in a food court and on a street, wearing the same outfit in which her body was later found. The investigation into her disappearance revealed that Sarai had suffered a fatal blow to the head, confirming she had been murdered. There was no evidence suggesting she had been assaulted, nor were there indications of her involvement in espionage or human trafficking. The location where her body was found was not believed to be the primary crime scene. A blanket found nearby suggested she had been moved post-mortem, as the area was typically crowded with tourists. Turkish authorities launched a comprehensive investigation, questioning at least 9 suspects, including 2 women. The breakthrough in the case came when a homeless man named Ziya Tasali was apprehended. Under interrogation, Tasali confessed to attacking Sarai while she was taking photographs near the city walls. He admitted to attempting to kiss her, and when she resisted, he struck her with a rock, leading to her death. His confession was substantiated by DNA evidence found at the crime scene, conclusively linking him to the murder. In June 2014, Ziya Tasali was convicted of Sarai Sierra's murder and sentenced to life in prison. The case drew widespread media attention, both in Turkey and internationally, highlighting significant concerns about the safety of solo travelers, particularly women.
It was a peaceful afternoon in London on March 22, 2017, when tragedy unfolded within the bustling streets and iconic landmarks. Kurt Cochran, a 54-year-old American musician, and his wife Melissa were immersed in the vibrant atmosphere of the city, their laughter echoing against the backdrop of historic architecture. Little did they know, their simple day would soon be damaged forever by an act of terror that would resonate across the globe. The Cochrans, celebrating their 25th wedding anniversary, went on a European adventure filled with dreams of exploration and cherished moments. Their love, seasoned by years of companionship, radiated warmth amidst the cool London air as they strolled hand in hand along Westminster Bridge. Kurt's eyes sparkled with admiration for his wife, Melissa, the epitome of his lifelong dreams and aspirations. As they neared the majestic silhouette of Big Ben, their peaceful stroll was shattered by the revving of an engine, a chilling prelude to the impending danger that was about to happen in a few seconds. In the blink of an eye, Khalid Massoud, driven by malice, drove a rental car into people walking on the bridge. In the midst of the chaos, Kurt instinctively acted to protect his wife, Melissa, putting himself in danger to keep her safe. In an act of unparalleled bravery, Kurt pushed Melissa to safety. His actions were done out of pure selflessness and love for his wife. Melissa, propelled to safety by her husband's courage, bore witness to the harrowing scene unfolding before her eyes. The impact was swift and merciless as the car struck Kurt, launching him over the bridge's parapet, his body plummeting toward the cold waters of the River Thames below. As Melissa lay injured, her husband's sacrifice to save her was successful, but it cost him his life. Across the Atlantic, in the peaceful confines of Utah, Kurt's life was celebrated through the halls of Onion Street Studio, the culmination of his lifelong passion for music. His dreams of rock stardom may have remained unfulfilled on stage, but his impact resonated in the lives he touched. In the aftermath of the attack, as the world mourned the loss of innocent lives, Melissa's grief knew no bounds. "He was my best friend, my husband, and my everything," she whispered, her voice trembling with sorrow. Kurt's absence left a void that could never be filled. As the inquest unfolded, the courtroom bore witness to the chilling reality of that tragic day. CCTV footage captured the fleeting moments before tragedy struck, immortalizing Kurt's act of heroism for posterity. Witnesses recounted the chaos and devastation unleashed by Massoud's rampage. Through it all, Melissa remained steadfast. Despite her injuries, she found solace in the memories of a life shared with Kurt, each cherished moment a sign of their enduring love. As the inquiry drew to a close, the world paused to honor the memory of Kurt Cochran, a hero who sacrificed everything for love. What if Kurt had not acted with such bravery? What if Melissa had been left to face the car's impact alone? In a world plagued by darkness, Kurt Cochran's selfless act of heroism serves as a beacon of light, illuminating the path toward a brighter future.
It was April 6, 2013, in the Kashmir Valley, India. Sarah Groves, a 24-year-old British backpacker, was on an adventure in this beautiful but disputed region. She had been in India since February, visiting her boyfriend Saeed Ahmad Shoda, and staying on the new beauty houseboat on Dal Lake in Srinagar. Sarah loved traveling and was always eager to explore new places. Sarah's parents, Vic and Kate Groves, were uneasy about her trip to Kashmir. The area was known for its unrest due to the ongoing territorial disputes between India and Pakistan. They had tried to dissuade her from going and even planned to meet her in Nepal to convince her to leave. On that day, Sarah's lifeless body was discovered in her room on the houseboat. She had been brutally stabbed 45 times. Her bloodied body, clutching a mobile phone, indicated she had tried to call for help. The scene was horrific, with puncture wounds and slashes all over her body. Dr. Farida Noor, head of forensics at Srinagar's General Medical College, described the injuries, highlighting that 2 fatal wounds, one to her neck and another that pierced her lung, caused her death. The rest were defensive wounds, suggesting Sarah had fought bravely against her attacker. The prime suspect, a 7-foot-tall Dutchman named Richard de Witt, was apprehended hours later, about 50 miles away. He was found shoeless and soaking wet, carrying only a passport and 2,000 pounds. De Witt had been staying in the room close to Sarah's on the houseboat. After the murder, he had stolen a rowing boat to escape, but it capsized, forcing him to swim to shore before he was able to hire a taxi to a nearby city. De Witt initially confessed to the murder, claiming that the devil had compelled him to commit the heinous act. However, he later retracted his statement, proclaiming his innocence. Despite overwhelming evidence against him, De Witt has managed to evade justice for over a decade. De Witt, now 53 years old, has been described as a paranoid schizophrenic who refuses to take his medication. He has exhibited erratic behavior, such as taking off his clothes in cold weather and locking himself in the bathroom to avoid attending court hearings. He has fired 5 lawyers, claiming they were incompetent or in cahoots with the Dutch government. De Witt believes the case against him is a fabrication by wicked people within the Dutch government, coming from his past involvement with a nationalist, anti-immigration political party in the Netherlands. Sarah's parents, Vic and Kate, have endured an excruciating decade of legal battles and emotional torment. They have attended 225 scheduled court dates, many of which were postponed or canceled. Witnesses have died or disappeared, and the Indian legal system has failed to build a watertight case against De Witt. Floods in Kashmir have destroyed crucial evidence, and 2 judges assigned to the case have stepped down. Vic and Kate have been vocal about their frustration with the slow progress of the case and the lack of support from the British government. They have campaigned tirelessly for justice, but their efforts have been prevented at every turn. Vic, now 80, expressed his despair, saying, "We are not confident that it will ever conclude. The worst aspect of the last decade is that we are no longer a complete family. There is a massive gap in our lives that can never be filled. Sarah was 1 in a million, a wonderful person in every way who always considered others ahead of herself." Despite the Groves family's relentless pursuit of justice, De Witt's antics and the difficult legal process have left them with little hope. De Witt's behavior in custody has been unpredictable. He has shown no remorse for his actions and has even tormented Sarah's family with cryptic messages. In 2017, he told a court he had a secret about Sarah's murder, but would only reveal it to her parents, further adding to their anguish. The case has become a farce, with De Witt manipulating the system to avoid standing trial. Doctors have concluded that he has a well-systematized delusional belief that he is being pursued by the Dutch government. He has refused to cooperate with his lawyers and has shown a complete disregard for the legal process. His wife, Thai national Uma Rupanya, revealed that De Witt became increasingly paranoid and insecure before abandoning her and their 2 children to go traveling. His journey took him to Kenya, Dubai, and Nepal, before he eventually settled in Kashmir, where he committed the murder. The Groves family has also faced challenges with the Indian authorities. Vic criticized the authorities for not taking the trial seriously, noting that only a small percentage of the 225 scheduled hearings actually took place. The trial was suspended years ago after De Witt was deemed unfit to stand trial. Despite their efforts to speed up the process of the case, the Groves family has been left in constant confusion. Sarah's father, Vic, told Mail Online, "There are some developments, and we are hopeful that there will be a conclusion that offers some level of closure. No further comment on this at this stage." The family has set up the Sarah Groves Foundation to keep her memory alive and support art, fitness, and adventure in young people's lives, areas that were close to Sarah's heart. On the 10th anniversary of Sarah's murder, Vic told ITV that he had all but given up hope that De Witt would be brought to trial. He criticized the British government for their lack of involvement, saying, "We are unavoidably wrapped up in international politics, and we have a British government who haven't stood by us. Nothing has worked out in our favor as the political situation between federal India and Kashmir is at an all-time low." September 30th, 2010, was meant to be a day of joy and adventure for 30-year-old David Hartley and his wife, Tiffany, a young couple seeking a moment of escape and leisure. That Thursday, David and his wife were out jet skiing on Falcon Lake, a reservoir on the Texas-Mexico border. The couple had met in high school and were married for 8 years. Despite the fact that there had been some worrying news of cartel-related activities on the lake, David and Tiffany weren't too worried. This wasn't their first time out on the lake. They had been there a month earlier, too, and hadn't encountered any danger. Besides, what did they have to do with cartels? They only wanted to take some photographs of the ruins of a half-submerged church on the Mexican side of Falcon Lake. As such, the day started out beautifully. David and Tiffany were in love. Theirs was the kind of love story most people wish to have, filled with adventure and a sense of security. But their fate took a cruel twist that day. David and Tiffany were still taking photos of the church when they heard the 3 speedboats approaching them. David and Tiffany were stunned to see that the 3 boats were carrying heavily armed men. It all happened in a flash. The men started shooting indiscriminately at the couple. In an instant, David and Tiffany took off on their sea-doos. They had to get away. They had to survive this. But bullets whizzed by, piercing the air. It didn't take long for one of the dozens of bullets to hit David Hartley in the back of his head. The man collapsed in the water. Tiffany reached for him and gripped his life vest with one of her hands while holding the sea-doo with the other. As she struggled to haul David's body onto the vehicle, the woman found herself staring down the barrel of a gun. There were 2 men essentially threatening to take her life. Tiffany Hartley looked both of them in the eye. She knew they could end it all right there. They could kill her the way they killed David. She pleaded with the men not to shoot her. The 2 men exchanged a few words in Spanish, then left. Tiffany let go of David's body. She couldn't keep holding him, not if she wanted to escape. She took off. More shots rang out from behind her. Tiffany didn't look back. She survived, managing to escape. She alerted the authorities. Her story caused an uproar, with the media dubbing her the Widow of Pirate Lake. Some accused her of being the mastermind behind David's demise. Others suggested both she and David were involved in drug trafficking, since authorities speculated early on that the couple had stumbled into a drug deal, given the area's reputation as a hub for Mexican drug cartels. Sheriff Sigifredo Gonzalez of Zapata County, Texas, stood firmly by Tiffany's side. He noted that her account aligned with 2 similar incidents earlier that year, events she couldn't have known about. Doubts about Tiffany's account waned significantly after Rolando Armando Flores Villegas, the lead Mexican investigator on the case, was gruesomely murdered. His severed head was delivered in a suitcase to a Mexican military post shortly after David's death, underscoring the danger and lending credibility to Tiffany's story. Sheriff Gonzalez firmly stated that there was no evidence to indicate Tiffany was involved in David's death in any capacity. In 2012, Mexican authorities arrested a leader of the Zetas drug cartel in connection with David Hartley's death. Salvador Alfonso Martinez Escobedo was also linked to the murder of the lead Mexican investigator in the case, Rolando Armando Flores Villegas. Escobedo may have been the one responsible for that area, but not the one responsible for the actual killing. It was January 3, 2024, in Rishikesh, India. Aisulu Kurmanaliva, a 32-year-old woman from Kyrgyzstan, was found hanging in a hotel room at Raj Resort. She had been in Rishikesh for a meditation program. This discovery shocked everyone around her. Aisulu had come to India with a group of 10 foreigners for a yoga practice session at Satya Sadhana Sansthan in Tapovan. They arrived on December 21, 2023, and completed their course on January 2, 2024. Afterward, the group checked into the Holiday Home Hotel, where Aisulu seemed ready to relax and explore the city. On January 3rd, Aisulu left the Holiday Home Hotel for a walk but did not return. Her friends were worried and tried to contact her, but her phone was switched off. They searched for her but couldn't find any trace. This prompted them to file a missing persons report with the local police. The police quickly began their investigation, hoping to find Aisulu safe and sound. While the police were investigating the case, they received a call from the manager of Raj Resort. He reported that a foreign woman had been found hanging in one of their rooms. The police rushed to the scene and confirmed the woman's identity as Aisulu Kurmanaliva. She had used an air conditioner wire to hang herself. The room was unlocked and there were no signs of forced entry or struggle. Senior Sub-Inspector Yogesh Pandey stated that the initial investigation pointed to self-murder. Aisulu's friends mentioned that she had been suffering from depression for a long time and was distressed due to marital issues. The police sent her body for a post-mortem examination to confirm the cause of death. They also informed the Kyrgyzstani embassy about the incident and tried to contact her family. The embassy and the police faced a challenge when Aisulu's family refused to get her body sent back to their country. According to her friends, Aisulu practiced Islam, and the police awaited a representative from the embassy to perform her funeral according to Muslim customs. The police were also investigating how Aisulu ended up at Raj Resort, as she had not booked a room there. This raised questions about her movements on the day she went missing. Did she meet someone who led her to the resort? Was she seeking solitude to end her life? Or was there more to the story? Isulu's death left many unanswered questions. She came to India for peace and healing through meditation and yoga, but her trip ended in tragedy. Her friends and family were left to grapple with the loss and the mystery surrounding her death. The investigation continued, with the police trying to piece together her final hours. On August 9, 2020, Lisbeth Flores left her home in Brownsville, Texas on foot and walked across the Veterans International Bridge, thus crossing the U.S.-Mexico border to the city of Matamoros, Mexico. The 23-year-old, who was a mother of two, called her mother, Maria Rubio, and told her she was visiting her boyfriend in Matamoros and that she would be returning home to Brownsville that night. But the cause of Lisbeth's going to Matamoros was far different. Earlier that Sunday, the young woman had received a message from an acquaintance of hers, a man called Braulio Martinez. According to the message, Lisbeth's boyfriend, who was also the father of her two young children, had been kidnapped, and the kidnappers were asking for ransom. The young woman, maybe gripped by terror or overcome by love, decided to leave the safety of her home and save her husband without alerting the authorities or letting her family know about the truth, as she knew it. This proved to be a fatal mistake. Less than 24 hours after Lisbeth called her mother, Maria Rubio, the older woman called the Brownsville Police Department. It was August 10th, and Lisbeth failed to return home the way she'd promised over the phone. Lisbeth was reported missing, and police started looking for her. In the meantime, Lisbeth's sister, Carmen, received a text from Braulio Martinez. The man told her he couldn't find Lisbeth anywhere in Matamoros. At no point, though, did he mention he had told Lisbeth about her boyfriend being kidnapped. Lisbeth's family feared the worst. What if something horrible happened to her? She was so young, and her children were so little. Her baby boy was only 8 months old. Her daughter was 4 years old. They could only wait and hope that the police would find the young woman. Police did find Lisbeth Flores only one day after she was reported missing. They found her in a grassy field near a construction site in Matamoros, Mexico. She was shirtless, lying face up in the field. She had a horrible injury to her face. A part of her scalp was missing. And to make things even more horrifying, all of Lisbeth's teeth had been pulled out of her mouth. The young woman was dead, and everything pointed to a very violent death. Investigators agreed the woman had been tortured, suffering at the hands of a very deranged individual. Lisbeth died from a blunt force trauma to her head. A rock covered in blood was discovered near her body, but the culprit had left enough evidence behind. Braulio Martinez was arrested at his home on August 18th, a little over a week after authorities discovered Lisbeth's body. The Tamaulipas State Prosecutor's Office charged the man with the murder of Lisbeth Flores. According to an anonymous law enforcement official, Braulio Martinez fabricated the story of the kidnapping in order to lure Lisbeth across the border, with the motive for the brutal crime being a robbery. It is unclear how Lisbeth knew Braulio Martinez. What we do know, however, is that Martinez is a convicted sex offender. He spent 4 years in a state prison in Huntsville after pleading guilty to 2 counts of sexual assault on a child. He was released in 2010. Lisbeth's family had to set up a GoFundMe page in order to raise money for the young woman's funeral. The Mexican government offered the family assistance in returning Lisbeth, but a local funeral parlor eventually stepped in to help the grieving family. On June 11, 2024, Jorge Guillen of El Paso, Texas, was on vacation with his wife, Lizette Zambrano, and other family members. The group was staying at the Sonoran Sea Resort in Puerto Penasco, Mexico, which is located on the strip of land that joins the Baja California Peninsula with the rest of Mexico. At 43 years old, Jorge was an evening student at Western Technical College, studying refrigeration or HVAC. He was only days from graduation, which he was set to attend on Friday, June 14th, but he never made it. What was supposed to be a relaxing vacation with friends and family suddenly turned into a horrifying tragedy. That Tuesday evening on June 11th, Jorge and his wife, 35-year-old Lizette, were spending some time at the resort pool with Lizette's cousin and her boyfriend. They were in the pool for about 20 minutes, but it was getting dark and Jorge wanted to visit the beach too. Jorge and Lizette left the pool and went to the beach. The couple sat and talked on the beach, relishing the view. It was getting darker still. After a while, they decided to return to the resort, back to their friends and family. Upon returning, Jorge and Lizette found their son and her cousin in the resort's hot tub. Deciding to join them, the couple got into the hot tub for a little bit. The bubbles had just turned on. After a while, though, their son and cousin got out of the tub. Jorge and Lizette decided to stay and relax for a while longer. They were completely unaware that danger was lurking. Eventually, Lizette got out of the water and sat on the pool deck. Everything was peaceful, at least for the moment. 10 minutes later, Jorge looked at his wife, letting out an expletive both in wonder and terror. Lizette didn't have to wonder at the reason. She could feel the electric shock too. In an instant, 43-year-old Jorge Guillon keeled over. Despite feeling the continuous stream of electric shocks herself, Lizette sprang forward. She had to help her husband. She had to get him out of the water. But Lizette barely managed to touch her husband's body before the electric shock incapacitated her too. Lizette realized she wasn't able to move anymore. Then she started praying that God would help them both. Then there was only darkness. In the meantime, as Lizette slipped into unconsciousness, the couple's friends and family, as well as other resort guests, noticed something was wrong. They watched in horror as Jorge Guillon sank to the bottom of the hot tub, unmoving. By then, Lizette was unconscious too. People rushed to help the couple. Some started praying while others sprang into action. But each attempt to get them out of the hot tub was rendered useless. The would-be rescuers were also getting shocked. Lizette's uncle managed to get the woman out of the water. She had no pulse. Someone started CPR. In the meantime, people struggled to save Jorge, but the shocks were incredibly strong, and he was at the bottom of the hot tub, making his rescue incredibly difficult. To top things off, it took resort staff some 10 minutes to hit the jacuzzi's emergency shutoff switch. Several relatives wrapped a metal pole in towels and managed to push Jorge toward the edge of the tub. Eventually, they managed to pull Jorge out of the water. He wasn't breathing. Lizette was revived after being shocked. She had suffered burns consistent with electrocution and was in critical condition. She was transported to a hospital in Arizona. Several hours later, as she regained her consciousness, Lizette was able to overhear some nurses talking. When one of them said, her husband didn't make it, Lizette knew the absolute worst had happened to her and her family. After recovering from her injuries, Lizette Zambrano decided to file a lawsuit in El Paso County District Court against Casago LLC, the facilitator of the vacation rental. According to Lizette, she and her husband were electrocuted by faulty wiring that sent an electrical current into the water. Lizette also alleges that a nearby security guard didn't help when he was asked to turn off the power to the hot tub. Lizette is suing the resort for $1 million. She wants someone to take responsibility for her husband's death, and she wants to prevent something like this from happening to somebody else. It was October 13, 2017, in the town of Orsha, located in the central Indian state of Madhya Pradesh. Roger Stotesbury, a 58-year-old British tourist, was visiting the Lakshmi Narayan temple with his wife, Hillary. They were on a year-long gap-year journey around the world, documenting their travels on a blog. This trip was meant to be a celebration of their freedom after raising 2 children and caring for their parents. It was supposed to be a fun and memorable trip, but it ended in tragedy. Roger and Hillary had left their home in Buckingham, England in November 2016. They rented out their house, put their belongings in storage, and set off to explore the world. Their journey took them through 22 countries, including Italy, Chile, Japan, and Australia, with India being their final destination before returning home. The couple arrived in Orcha on October 12th and checked into the Shish Mahal Hotel. They spent their first day exploring the town and visiting the Taj Mahal, celebrating Hillary's birthday. Roger, a documentary filmmaker, was enthusiastic about capturing every moment of their travels. He frequently updated their blog, sharing photos and stories with friends and family back home. On the afternoon of October 13th, Roger and Hillary visited the Lakshmi Narayan Temple, a 17th century structure known for its stunning architecture and scenic views. Roger was particularly excited to take photographs from the temple's terrace. As he positioned himself on the edge of a narrow wall to get the perfect shot, he suddenly slipped and fell from a height of 30 feet. Hillary, standing just a few feet away, watched in horror as her husband plunged to the ground. Onlookers and temple officials rushed to help. Roger was quickly placed on a stretcher and taken to Ramraja Hospital. Despite their efforts, he succumbed to his injuries. The initial examination revealed that he suffered a cardiorespiratory arrest and severe spinal injuries. The news of Roger's death shocked everyone who knew the couple. They were described as the most happily married couple by their friends and family. Hillary was in shock, unable to comprehend the sudden loss of her beloved husband. Local authorities began legal proceedings and provided support to Hillary during this difficult time. The couple's blog, Our Middle-Aged Gap Year, detailed their adventures and the philosophy behind their journey. They believed in living life to the fullest, with Roger's motto being, to die young as late as possible. Their travels included cycling in the Atacama Desert, trekking in the Amazon, and visiting Graceland. They shared their experiences and photos, encouraging others to embrace new adventures. Roger's death raised several questions. Was it an accident? Was he trying to take a selfie, as some reports suggested? Or was it simply a tragic misstep? Pratik Kumar, a senior police officer, stated that Roger was trying to take a picture of himself on the wall when he fell. However, family members, including Hillary's cousin Gina Rosner, disputed this claim. They insisted that Roger was not taking a selfie and had already taken several photographs before the fall. Roger's body was sent for an autopsy, and the British High Commission provided assistance to Hillary in returning home. The couple had planned to return to England on December 16, 2017. Their house in Buckingham, rented out to a 47-year-old architect, awaited their return. The Stotesbury's journey was carefully planned. They sold their possessions, rented out their home, and purchased round-the-world flight tickets. They aimed to live on a budget of £100 a day, believing their trip would be cost-neutral. They saw this gap year as an opportunity to experience new things and reconnect as a couple after years of raising children and fulfilling family responsibilities. It was January 2017, and 20-year-old Abby Connor was on vacation with her older brother Austin, her mother Ginny, and her stepfather John. The family of four had left their home in Pewaukee, Wisconsin, and were spending what was supposed to be a blissful holiday at the 5-star Iberostar Paraíso del Mar resort in Playa del Carmen, in Mexico. But unbeknownst to Abby and her family, something terrible was about to happen. On that January afternoon, Abby and her older brother, 23-year-old Austin Connor, were swimming in a pool at the resort while their mom and stepdad were getting ready for dinner. The family planned to meet up and go eat together. Abby and Austin had spent the day having fun, drinking the occasional drink. At some point during their swim, the siblings decided to celebrate their vacation with drinks from the swim-up bar. When they went up to the bar, another group of people was already there. As people do on vacation, Abby and Austin struck up a conversation with the others, even though they were strangers. After all, why not? They were young, they were having fun, and they were in Mexico at a 5-star resort. What could go wrong? As fate would have it, Abby and Austin were about to find out the answer to this question. The bartender poured out a line of shots. Abby and Austin each took one, as did their new friends. They did the shots and then continued talking for a little while. Then the lights went out. The next thing Austin remembered was the cold shock of consciousness in an ambulance. He had no idea where he was or how he got there. His little sister Abby was also being taken to the hospital. She was completely unconscious. But what happened? The truth only came out a while later. After downing the shots, both Abby and Austin lost their consciousness. Other guests saw them drowning in the pool and alerted hotel staff. Abby was found floating face down at the shallow end of the pool, while Austin kicked and splashed in distress, seemingly slipping in and out of consciousness. They were rushed to the hospital. Meanwhile, their mother and stepfather had no idea the siblings were in danger. They reached the hotel lobby and waited for Abby and Austin to join them for dinner. But as time passed, they grew worried. Where were they? Finally, Ginny and John asked hotel staff to call the siblings' room. What happened next changed the course of their lives forever. A hotel employee told them to wait. The woman went to get the general manager of the resort, who informed them about the accident. When Ginny and John arrived at the hospital, they found out the siblings' blood alcohol level was very high at the time of the incident, 3 times the limit in their home state of Wisconsin. Austin had suffered a concussion and had a golf ball-sized lump on his head, but he was awake. The same couldn't be said about Abby. She had a broken collarbone and remained unconscious after prolonged oxygen deprivation. Ginny and John were desperate to help their daughter, but when doctors told them she had to be transferred to an intensive care unit in Cancun and demanded a $6,371 payment, plus a $10,000 deposit for the Cancun hospital before they'd transfer her, the parents found themselves in a desperate situation. They had to find another solution. The following day, Abby was eventually airlifted to a trauma center in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, but doctors declared her brain dead on arrival. Since Abby had always expressed a strong desire to be an organ donor, Her body was kept on life support until suitable recipients were found. In the days after the tragedy, Abby's family attempted to file a police report into the incident, but their attempts were futile. Mexican police insisted the cause of death was accidental drowning, but the family had a hard time believing this. After he recovered, Austin said he suspected they'd been drugged. But according to a multi-part investigation led by Milwaukee's The Journal-Sentinel, something even more foul could be at play in Abby's death. Several people came forward and spoke to the Sentinel about their own experiences of blacking out after drinking small and moderate amounts of alcohol at resorts in Playa del Carmen and Cancun. The report chronicled harrowing accounts of American tourists who were robbed or assaulted after being incapacitated by what appeared to be tainted or poisoned alcohol. Some victims also reported being extorted for medical services. The investigation uncovered widespread claims that tourists who attempted to warn others about their terrifying experiences had their reviews removed from the hotel review site, TripAdvisor. Later in 2017, Mexican authorities raided 31 resorts and seized 10,000 gallons of illicit alcohol from an illegal distillery in Playa del Carmen. In November, Abby's family filed a lawsuit accusing Iberostar Resort of negligence. According to the lawsuit, Iberostar knew that alcoholic beverages being served at the Hotel Iberostar Paraíso del Mar were tainted, substandard, poisonous, unfit for human consumption, and or otherwise failed to meet bare minimum standards for food and beverage safety. It was May 14, 2024, a typical day in Goa, India. Among the tourists enjoying the coastal scenery was Akhil Vijayan, a 35-year-old resident of Ernakulam, Kerala. Akhil, his wife, and a group of 7 to 8 friends had checked into the circuit house in Altinho just the day before, eager to spend their vacation in one of India's most popular destinations. They rented a car and set out to explore, with Miramar Beach being one of their stops. Miramar Beach, located about 3 kilometers from the capital city of Panaji, was bustling with both tourists and locals. The group arrived in the late afternoon, enjoying the beach's scenic views and relaxing atmosphere. As evening approached, they were still on the beach, soaking in the last moments of daylight and the cool breeze. At around 8:50 p.m., the weather took a sudden turn for the worse. Heavy rainfall began to pour down, accompanied by loud thunder and flashes of lightning. Akhil and his group decided it was best to leave the beach and head back to their car to avoid getting drenched. They gathered their belongings and hurriedly made their way towards the parking area. As the rain intensified, the atmosphere became chaotic. People were rushing to find shelter, and the sound of thunder went louder and louder. Witnesses later described the scene as terrifying. It was then that a powerful lightning strike hit the beach. The bright flash and deafening sound were followed by a moment of eerie silence. The lightning had struck close to Akhil and his companions. The impact was immediate. Akhil, his wife, and a male friend were knocked to the ground, rendered unconscious by the strike. The rest of the group, including children, screamed in panic and rushed to help. Amid the confusion, Akhil's wife and the friend slowly regained consciousness. Disoriented but alive, Akhil, however, remained motionless. The group quickly realized the severity of the situation and called for help. The Panaji police were notified, and an ambulance was dispatched to the scene. The 108 ambulance service, known for its swift response, arrived promptly and rushed Akhil to the Goa Medical College Hospital in Bambolim, located about 7 kilometers away. Upon arrival at the hospital, the medical team immediately attended to Akhil. Despite their best efforts, it was too late. The doctors pronounced him dead on arrival. The police suspected that Akhil had suffered a heart attack, but the post-mortem examination later revealed the true cause of death. Akhil had died from electrocution and blast injuries consistent with a lightning strike. The news of Akhil's death spread quickly, leaving his family and friends in shock. His body was handed over to his family, who arranged for it to be flown back to Kerala for the final rites. Akhil, who worked in the taxi business, left behind his wife and 2 daughters. On July 7, 2018, 27-year-old Tatiana Mirutenko and her husband James Hoover were on vacation in Mexico City. Only a few days before, the couple had celebrated their first wedding anniversary. They hailed from Chicago but lived in California, where they moved after Tatiana had landed a job as an investor relations analyst at a biopharmaceutical company. They were on the trip of a lifetime with 2 other couples, aiming to make the most of their trip. The couple fell in love with the city and Mexico's food and culture. But tragedy was about to strike. That day, Tatiana and James visited a taco restaurant called El Califa in Lomas de Chapultepec, one of the most affluent neighborhoods. They were joined by two of their friends. Food was particularly important to Tatiana. She was a big foodie, and food was one of the reasons Mexico City made such an impression on her. During the vacation, she'd often text her parents, telling them they had to visit Mexico City and try the food for themselves. As such, it was no wonder that Tatiana was visiting an upscale restaurant. The group finished their meal, and then it was time to leave. It was simply a case of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. After all, Tatiana hadn't been the target, but it all happened nonetheless. As the group made their way out of the restaurant, two men rode by on a motorcycle. One of them had a firearm. Their target was a 47-year-old man, a bouncer at a nearby bar. The gunman shot several bullets, aiming for the bouncer, but he only managed to injure the bouncer. Instead, a fatal bullet found its way into Tatiana Mirutenko's body. The 27-year-old collapsed in front of her husband, killed by the stray bullet. Tatiana's death came as a shock to her family. It seemed to them that they were only recently looking at flowers for the woman's wedding, and now they were looking at flowers for her funeral. As of 2024, Mexican police have made no arrests in connection with Tatiana Mirutenko's death. On April 7, 2019, Miriam Bielte arrived on the island of Koh Si Chang, Thailand. Miriam, a 26-year-old from Hildesheim, Germany, had been exploring Thailand, enjoying her vacation. She had taken a ferry from the city of Pattaya, seeking a peaceful day on the peaceful island. Unbeknownst to her, this destination would soon become the setting for a horrifying crime. Miriam rented a motorbike to explore the island. She rode around, taking in the scenic views, and eventually reached a historic stone monument, a popular tourist spot. As she wandered through the site, she was approached by Ranakorn Romruan, a 24-year-old local man who worked as a beach cleaner. Ranakorn, under the influence of methamphetamine, initiated a conversation with Miriam and soon began pestering her for inappropriate acts. When she refused, he followed her into a wooded area nearby. Desperate and frightened, Miriam tried to escape, but Ranakorn caught up with her. He pinned her to the ground and brutally took advantage of her. Miriam struggled, but her attacker was relentless. In a bid to silence her and prevent her from reporting the assault, Ranakorn picked up a large rock and began smashing her face. He hit her repeatedly, ensuring she was dead. The brutality of the attack left her with severe head wounds and a broken leg. After killing Miriam, Ranakorn attempted to hide her body. He dragged her to a secluded spot, partially covering her with leaves and rocks in a crude attempt to conceal her. He then fled the scene, returning to his home to wash his blood-stained clothes. Later that day, a local resident discovered Miriam's body. The scene was horrific. Her face was barely recognizable from the brutal assault. The island, usually a haven for tourists, was immediately sealed off by the police. The news of the gruesome murder spread quickly, shocking everyone in the small community and beyond. Police acted swiftly. They reviewed CCTV footage and interviewed witnesses, quickly identifying Ranakorn as the prime suspect. He was seen leaving the scene with blood on his clothes. A flower vendor who knew Ranakorn also reported seeing him covered in blood. The police tracked him to his home, where they found him calmly watching TV, smoking cigarettes and drinking beer. His blood-stained clothes were found hidden in his home. Ranakorn was arrested and taken into custody. During his interrogation, he confessed to the crime, admitting that he had raped and murdered Miriam while high on drugs. He showed no remorse, explaining that he had killed her to prevent her from reporting the crime. The following day, at a police conference in Chonburi province, Ranakorn reenacted the crime for the authorities. With a blue bag over his head, he demonstrated how he had used the rock to kill Miriam, leaving the onlookers in shock. Police Colonel Ankul Sarakul, speaking at the conference, confirmed the details of Ranakorn's confession. "This is how he did it. This is how he killed the tourist. He used a rock to hit her in the face," he said. The police charged Ranakorn with premeditated murder, rape, and concealing a body. He was detained at the Chonburi police station while officers prepared the legal paperwork for his court submission. Ranakorn's mother, 43-year-old Nongluk Fosang, visited him in prison the night of his arrest. She brought him some clothes and expressed her shock and sorrow over her son's actions. Speaking to reporters, she said, "My son and I didn't live together, so I didn't know much about what he usually did in the day. I only knew that he worked on a boat and collected rubbish from the beaches. He is a quiet guy who doesn't talk much. He likes to stay alone at home watching TV and listening to music, just like most of the guys. I deeply apologize to the girl's family on behalf of my son. I never thought that he could do anything like this. He deserves the full lawful punishment, and I am willing to accept the judge's decision." On July 11, 2019, just over 3 months after the murder, the Chonburi Provincial Court handed down its verdict. The court found Ranakorn guilty of premeditated murder, rape, drug use, and concealing a body. The nature of the crime was so severe that the court ruled no mitigation was possible. Ronicorn was sentenced to death. On October 5, 2022, 24-year-old Sebastian turned on the fuel-burning water heater inside the bathroom to shower with warm water in an Airbnb-rented Rio de Janeiro apartment. Had he known, he wouldn't have tried that because his life, vast dreams, and aspirations were thwarted at that moment. Sebastian, born on May 9, 1998 in Miami, Florida, to Rosa Elena Martinez Betis and Jaime Mejia Londono, Colombian immigrants, spent his formative years in Miramar, Florida. He graduated summa cum laude from Palmetto Ridge High School in 2016. A dedicated scholar, Sebastian received Florida's Academic Scholars Award, enabling him to pursue a dual bachelor's degree in Latin American and Caribbean Studies and International Affairs, with a minor in Portuguese at Florida State University. Graduating summa cum laude in May 2020, he showcased his academic prowess and commitment to learning. Throughout his undergraduate years, Sebastian immersed himself in diverse experiences, serving as an English instructor and childcare provider in Managua, Nicaragua, and undertaking teaching and tutoring roles in Tallahassee and Naples. He also dedicated his time to volunteering with organizations such as the Tallahassee Bail Fund and the Frenchtown Urban Farm. Additionally, Sebastian assumed leadership roles, notably serving as the director and event coordinator for the Coalition for Latinx Studies at Florida State University. Sebastian took it upon himself to delve into genealogical research, driven by a desire to explore his roots as a descendant of the Muisca and Panche peoples. Eager to reconnect with his ancestral community, language, and heritage, he embarked on a journey to uncover the history of the Muisca people and their ongoing struggle for recognition as an indigenous community in Colombia. Sebastian's research journey extended beyond the confines of academia as he engaged with communities through archival studies and ethnographic fieldwork in Brazil and his grandmother's hometown of Alban, Cundinamarca, Colombia. In the spring of 2021, Sebastian received a departmental fellowship from New York University, marking the beginning of his graduate studies at the Center for Latin American and Caribbean Studies. Throughout his academic journey, he immersed himself in coursework focusing on indigeneity, social movements, and the impacts of capitalism on indigenous communities in Brazil and Colombia. By fall, he commenced his master's degree program, while concurrently undertaking his Fulbright research program, guided by faculty from the Institute of History at the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. Tragically, Sebastian's promising journey was cut short by a sudden and unforeseen accident. An improperly installed and damaged exhaust duct led to dangerously high levels of carbon monoxide emanating from the water heater he activated. Trapped within the confines of his bathroom, Sebastian succumbed to the lethal gas. His lifeless body was discovered the following day. A Brazilian police investigation revealed that the water heater's exhaust duct was improperly connected and damaged. The bathroom lacked proper ventilation, and the heater was improperly installed inside the bathroom, in violation of the applicable building code. Despite Airbnb's marketing efforts to position itself as a purveyor of safety, it refuses to mandate the use of simple carbon monoxide detectors. Sebastian's family said that Airbnb never reached out to them after Sebastian's death. In June, they sued the company in California State Court, but that couldn't bring Sebastian back. It was April 16, 2024, in Cancun, Mexico, a bustling city known for its resorts and nightlife. Early that morning at 5 a.m., the tranquility of the City Express Hotel was shattered by a gruesome discovery. A 58-year-old British tourist was found dead in his room, lying in a pool of blood. His wife, a 53-year-old British woman, was found beside him with multiple cuts on her arms. This disturbing scene marked the beginning of a complex and tragic investigation. The man was found with a broken bottle between his legs, and there was blood spread across the room, including on his arms and chest. The initial shock of the scene was compounded by the apparent lack of immediate evidence pointing to what exactly had transpired. The hotel staff quickly alerted the authorities, and detectives rushed to the scene. When emergency services arrived, they found the woman still alive. She was promptly taken to the hospital. Reports indicated that she might have been under the influence of an unknown substance, which could explain her disoriented state. Despite her injuries, the cuts on her arms were not deep, and she was later released from the hospital. Local prosecutors quickly began their investigation. Early reports speculated a crime of passion due to the violent nature of the scene. However, the prosecutors made it clear that they were exploring all possibilities. One line of investigation suggested that the incident could have been an agreement between the couple about taking their own lives together, with only the husband succeeding in ending his life. The hotel became the center of a media frenzy. Mexican local newspapers reported the case as a homicide, casting suspicion on the wife. Photographs of the scene, including the man being stretchered into an ambulance under a blue sheet, circulated widely. Despite the grim nature of the photos, they provided little additional clarity about what had happened in that room. The Attorney General's office in Quintana Roo, which oversees Cancun, made a public statement. They confirmed that an investigation was underway and that both the man and his wife were traveling on British passports. They also mentioned their cooperation with the British consulate to support the families involved. The spokesman for the Attorney General's office stated that after receiving reports of a foreign tourist death in a hotel in the municipality of Benito Juarez, an investigation was launched to clarify the circumstances. The initial lines of inquiry suggest that this tragic incident may be a possible self-murder, involving two individuals who intended to end their lives. As the investigation continued, details about the couple's background began to emerge. They were known to have been traveling alone without any immediate family or friends. This fact complicated the investigation, as there were few first-hand accounts of their behavior or state of mind leading up to the incident. The man's wife, after being released from the hospital, had not been arrested, but her current whereabouts were unknown. This added another layer of mystery and urgency to the case. Authorities were keen on locating her, both for her safety and to gain further insights into what had transpired. The sources close to the investigation revealed that no arrests had been made and the case remained open. They reiterated that the initial findings were not definitive and that they were considering all possible scenarios. This included the possibility of the wife being under the influence of a substance, which might have affected her actions and recollections of the events. Local Mexican newspapers continued to publish various theories, some suggesting a violent argument had led to the husband's death. However, the prosecutors distanced themselves from these speculations, focusing instead on their ongoing investigation. As days passed, the British consulate in Mexico played a significant role in supporting the investigation. They worked closely with the local authorities and assisted the couple's families back in the UK. This international cooperation was crucial in navigating the complexities of the case. Despite the ongoing investigation, many questions remained unanswered. Why would a seemingly normal tourist couple end up in such a tragic situation? What was the nature of their relationship? Were there underlying issues or conflicts that led to this incident? The lack of concrete answers left room for speculation and concern.
It was a bright spring day when Sergio Luis Feliz Mancebo and his 9-year-old son, José Luis Feliz, went on a trip from New York to the Dominican Republic. The date was April 19, 2023, a day that would leave a permanent mark on their family's history for all the wrong reasons. As they landed at Chibao International Airport in Santiago, the promise of a joyful spring break trip lay ahead of them. Little did they know, their lives were about to be irrevocably changed. José, a bright-eyed fourth grader from the Bronx, had eagerly been looking forward to spending some time with his family in the Dominican Republic. The trip was meant to be a chance for him to connect with his roots, to bask in the warmth of familial love, and to create cherished memories with his father. However, as they made their way from the airport to their destination, tragedy struck with sudden and brutal force. What was supposed to be a simple trip was shattered when their vehicle was besieged by a gang of robbers. In a moment of sheer terror, Sergio, José, and their driver found themselves caught in a deadly game of cat and mouse. Refusing to succumb to the demands of the assailants, the driver pressed on, hoping to outmaneuver the looming threat. But their defiance only seemed to stoke the flames of violence. In a hail of bullets, the innocence of a young boy was brutally extinguished. Amidst the chaos and confusion, José found himself at the mercy of a bullet that tore through the vehicle, striking him in the head with devastating precision. Sergio, a father driven by love and desperation, could only watch in horror as his beloved son bled out before his eyes. Rushed to the nearest hospital in a desperate bid to save his life, Gioser fought valiantly against the odds, but the wound proved too severe. The damage was too profound. Despite the best efforts of medical professionals, there was nothing they could do to stem the tide of tragedy. As news of the senseless shooting spread across the Bronx and beyond, grief rippled through the community. Friends, family, and neighbors struggled to come to terms with the harrowing reality of a young life lost to violence. In the days that followed, the wheels of justice began to turn. Law enforcement officers worked tirelessly to apprehend those responsible for the heinous crime. Within hours, 5 suspects were taken into custody, their names forever linked to the tragic events of that tragic spring day. Luis Angel Vargas Brito, Delin Javier Mercado Martinez, Cesar Junior Ulloa Cuevas, Jose Manuel Amonte Santana, and Elian Martinez Sanchez. Their identities etched in infamy as the perpetrators of one of the most heinous crimes in recent memory. But amidst the grief and anguish, questions lingered. What drove these individuals to commit such a senseless act of violence? Was it a random act of robbery gone awry, or was there a darker motive lurking beneath the surface? Interviews with Julian Feliz, Gioser's uncle, provided a chilling glimpse into the disturbing truth behind the attack. The charged individuals, Tomas Peña Morel Tomasito and Derlin Javier Mercado Martinez, were not merely strangers, but trusted acquaintances with deep ties to the family. Morel Tomasito, in particular, emerged as the mastermind of the ill-fated robbery, exploiting his intimate knowledge of Sergio's movements and vulnerabilities. As the truth unraveled, the facade of innocence crumbled, exposing a web of deceit and betrayal. What seemed like a random act of violence was, in reality, a calculated betrayal by those closest to Sergio and Gioser.
Joseph Allen should have been celebrating a friend's birthday under the Caribbean sun. Instead, the 55-year-old man from Avenel, New Jersey, was found dead on the floor of his resort hotel room. Allen's lifeless body was discovered on the morning of June 13, 2019, at the Terra Linda Resort in the coastal Dominican city of Sosua, one of his favorite vacation destinations that he frequented multiple times per year. What was supposed to be a fun getaway among friends took a nightmarish turn that had Allen's family reeling and seeking answers. According to his sister Jamie Reed, the group had been relaxing by the pool on June 12th when Allen complained about overheating. Witnesses reported seeing the New Jersey man drenched in sweat as the Caribbean sun bore down. Allen decided to take a cool shower and return to his room to rest for the evening, rather than go out with his friends to continue the birthday celebrations. Jason, Joseph Allen's brother, recounted his last interaction with his sibling before the tragic incident unfolded. Allen had initially planned to go out for the night but ultimately decided against it, opting instead to stay in their room and unwind with a book. Neither knew this seemingly innocuous decision would mark the final moments before tragedy struck. The group grew concerned when Allen failed to meet up with his friends the following day as planned. They contacted the front desk at the Terra Linda Resort to request a wellness check on Allen's room. What they uncovered is every traveler's worst nightmare. Hotel staff entered the room to find Allen's lifeless body on the floor. Based on the scene, it appeared he had been dead for some time. The shocking discovery left Allen's loved ones reeling and demanding answers about what could have happened. Jason Allen addressed reporters, expressing concern about the lack of assistance and information provided by Dominican authorities regarding his brother's death. He emphasized the family's desire for answers and indicated a willingness to seek medical testing by American doctors if necessary. Reed mentioned that her brother was an avid traveler who took great pleasure in visiting the Dominican Republic repeatedly over the years. The family had no reason to believe he was dealing with any health issues that could have contributed to his sudden death, making the tragedy that much more baffling. Allen's mysterious passing marked the 9th reported case of an American tourist dying during or after a stay at the Dominican Republic resort over the previous 13 months. The cluster of deaths has cast a pall of suspicion over the Caribbean nation's tourism safety regulations and sparked concerns from travelers with upcoming reservations. Dominican officials have insisted the fatalities are isolated incidents and that the country remains a safe and welcoming destination for visitors. Over 6 million stopover tourists visited the Dominican Republic in 2018 alone, including 2.2 million Americans fueling the nation's lucrative tourism industry. Still, Alan's family is undeterred in their pursuit of getting concrete answers about what claimed the life of their otherwise healthy loved one in the prime of his life. They anxiously await further investigation results that could shed light on this terrible loss. But even with those findings, scores of questions remain. What was the actual cause of death? Was it an accident, foul play, or something else entirely? Could it have been prevented? And perhaps most haunting, could you or someone you love be the next victim on what was supposed to be a dream vacation? It was May 24, 2022 in Colima, Mexico. Ben Corser, a 37-year-old software engineer from Cornwall, England, had been living in Mexico since January. Ben was known for his pleasant nature and had become part of the local community in Colima. He was living with a Mexican-American family, including his friends Claudio and Alfredo, both skateboarders whom he joined in their activities. Ben's days were filled with joy and exploration, but on this day, his life took a tragic turn. On the evening of May 24th, Ben and Claudio returned from a trip to Guadalajara. Alfredo picked them up in a car to run some errands. They drove along the main boulevard in Colima and stopped at a supermarket on Camino Real Boulevard to buy some groceries. Ben was sitting in the back seat, Claudio in the front passenger seat, and Alfredo behind the wheel. It was supposed to be a routine stop, but it turned into a nightmare. As they sat in the car outside the supermarket, gunfire erupted. All three men were shot dead in an instant. The sudden, brutal attack left no room for escape or understanding. There were no signs of robbery, kidnapping, or any other clear motive. It was an unprovoked attack that left the community in shock and Ben's family devastated. Ben's parents, Andrew Corser, a former head teacher, and Lorraine Downs, along with his brother Tom, received the heartbreaking news back in Cornwall. They described the situation as Ben being in the wrong place at the wrong time. The lack of explanation or reason behind the killings compounded their grief. The police investigation was ongoing, but the family had received no answers. In the weeks leading up to the attack, there had been a dramatic upsurge in violence in Colima. Nearly 400 people had been killed in the crime wave that had swept through the region since January 25th. However, this violence had not been directed at tourists, making the attack on Ben and his friends all the more senseless. Local reporter Bertha Reynoso noted that Ben was the first foreign national to be killed in this wave of violence. The news of Ben's death spread quickly, and tributes poured in from around the world. Friends and family remembered him as a vibrant, multi-talented individual who lived life to the fullest. Ben held first-class degrees in both fine arts and mathematics. He was an artist, poet, computer programmer, skateboarder, sea swimmer, wild camper, festival goer, actor, yoga lover, photographer, music maker, and dancer. He had a rare breadth of interests and was known for his generosity and joy for life. Ben's family issued a statement expressing their profound grief and loss. They thanked the community of St. Just, Ben's large network of friends, and everyone who had offered support during this difficult time. The family also arranged for Ben's body to be returned to the UK for a funeral in St. Just, scheduled for midsummer, June 24th. State Prosecutor's Office spokesperson Gustavo Adrian Joya Cervera stated that the office was in contact with the British government to clarify the issue and assist with the repatriation of Ben's body. The British Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office also confirmed that it was providing support to Ben's family and was in contact with local authorities. Despite the ongoing police investigation, no clear motive for the killings had been established. The attack seemed to be a tragic case of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. The randomness of the violence left Ben's family and friends struggling to comprehend the senselessness of the act. It was July 24, 2022 at Playa del Carmen, a popular beach near Cancun, Mexico. Lena Dilip Kumar, a 38-year-old mother of two from Wembley, northwest London, was on a family vacation with her husband Vishal Maugi and their daughters. The family had planned a relaxing day at the beach, intending to take photos and enjoy the water, but this day would end in tragedy. Around 10:30 a.m., Lena and Vishal walked toward the beach with their daughters. They wanted to capture some family moments. Vishal went into the sea with their daughters, leaving Lena with the camera. After some time, Lena decided to join them in the water. She handed Vishal the camera and their beach bag, asking him to take them back to their hotel room. Vishal agreed, unaware that this simple task would change their lives forever. While Vishal was in the hotel room, The waves at Playa del Carmen grew stronger. The peaceful beach was becoming dangerous. Lena and her daughters began to struggle in the water. By the time Vishal returned to the beach, he saw a crowd gathered near the waves. His heart sank as he realized the crowd was surrounding his eldest daughter, who was struggling to stay afloat. In a state of panic, Vishal rushed to his daughter. Beachgoers had managed to hold on to her, but there was no sign of Lena. Desperate and fearing the worst, Vishal approached a lifeguard and begged for help. The lifeguard, equipped with a jet ski, sped off into the turbulent waters to search for Lena. Minutes felt like hours as Vishal anxiously waited on the shore. He watched the waves, hoping to see his wife safe and sound. But when the lifeguard returned, he carried Lena's lifeless body on the jet ski. The lifeguard immediately attempted to remove the water from her body, trying to revive her. Paramedics were called and they rushed Lena to a nearby clinic, hoping for a miracle. Half an hour later, a doctor emerged from the clinic with heartbreaking news. Despite their best efforts, Lena had not survived. The cause of death was suffocation due to submersion. Lena's tragic drowning left her family in shock and despair. Vishal's statement, read by Assistant Coroner Dr. Peter Straker at North London Coroner's Court, detailed the events of that fateful day. Family members listening via video link were devastated by the recounting of Lena's final moments. Dr. Straker expressed his condolences, ruling Lena's death as an accident. He hoped that Lena's daughters would find strength despite losing their mother. Lena was the only daughter in a family of 5 brothers. Her loss left a significant void in their lives. Vishal thanked his large family for their constant support, as well as the Mexican and British governments for their assistance during this difficult time. What if Vishal had stayed on the beach instead of going back to the hotel room? Could he have helped Lena and prevented this tragedy? What if there had been more lifeguards on duty that day? Could they have responded faster and saved Lena? The coroner concluded the inquest, emphasizing the accidental nature of Lena's death. Her family is left to cope with their grief, cherishing the memories they have of her. As they navigate life without her, they hold on to the hope that Lena's daughters will grow up strong, carrying their mother's love and memory within them. It was July 16, 2024, at the Kumbhe waterfall in Manjurn, India. Anvi Kamdar, a 27-year-old travel influencer from Mumbai, was visiting this location with her friends. Anvi was known for her lively travel content, which she shared with her 300,000 Instagram followers. On this day, she was filming an Instagram reel near the waterfall when tragedy struck. Anvi was an adventurous person who loved exploring new places and sharing her experiences. Her Instagram bio described her as a detective for travel, luxury finds, cafes, itineraries, tips and feels. She had a passion for discovering hidden gems and providing travel advice to her followers. But this day, her passion for content creation led her to a fatal accident. The Kumbhe waterfall is a stunning sight, especially during the monsoon season when the water flow is at its peak. However, this beauty comes with danger. The rocks around the waterfall become extremely slippery and dangerous. Anvi, accompanied by her 6 friends, was well aware of the risks, but was determined to capture the perfect shot. As Anvi positioned herself at the top of the waterfall, she lost her footing and slipped. She tumbled down the 300-foot gorge, landing on a hard, slippery patch of rocks. Her friends were horrified and immediately called for help. The local authorities were notified and a rescue operation began. Rescuer Shantanu Kuveskar described the challenging conditions they faced. She fell on the hard, slippery patch of rocks around 300 feet into the valley and couldn't be spotted initially, he said. The rescuers had to use a vertical pulley system to retrieve her. 6 rescuers climbed down the hill while another 50 assisted from above. It took them 6 hours to finally pull Anvi out of the gorge. Anvi was still alive when they found her. She was responsive and placed on a ventilator for transport to the Mangaon Taluka Government Hospital. Despite the best efforts of the medical team, Anvi succumbed to her injuries shortly after arrival. The news of Anvi's death spread quickly and her followers were devastated. Her final Instagram post, shared a day before the accident, listed 5 cheap and uncongested spots in India to visit during the monsoons. The comment section of this post was flooded with messages of grief and condolences. Fellow travel influencers expressed their sorrow and support for her family. Please, let's focus on praying for her soul to rest in peace and remember the joy and positivity she brought to our lives, commented fellow travel influencer Akanksha Manga. She was an extremely responsible traveler. It was an accident, could have happened to anyone, added food influencer Shreya Sangvi. Anvi's death also sparked a debate about the risks influencers take to create content. Some criticized her for risking her life for an Instagram reel, while others defended her, emphasizing that it was a tragic accident that could have happened to anyone. Local officials issued warnings to tourists, urging them to exercise caution while visiting the area, especially during the rainy season. Suhas Dewas, the district collector of Pune, advised the public to avoid water bodies during the monsoon season due to the increased danger. "I appeal to the public to be responsible and not go near any waterfalls or streams. We have issued advisories and the management has asked us to handle any sort of incident," Dewas said. Anvi Kamdar was more than just a travel influencer. She was a chartered accountant who had worked with Deloitte. Her friends and family remember her as a kind person who loved to share her experiences and inspire others to explore the world. Her social media presence was filled with colorful photos of her travels to places like Turkey, Azerbaijan, and the Maldives. Anvi's journey was one of exploration and adventure, and her followers were captivated by her enthusiasm and detailed travel guides. In the aftermath of Anvi's death, there were calls for better safety measures and awareness for tourists visiting such locations. The desire for capturing the perfect shot should not go beyond the importance of safety and caution.
It was August 3rd, 2023, a day that began like any other for Adrienne Vaughn, the esteemed president of Bloomsbury, USA. She and her family, husband Mike White and their 2 children, went on a vacation, seeking relaxation from the demands of everyday life. Adrienne Vaughn, a woman of remarkable talent and passion, had dedicated her life to the world of literature. As the head of Bloomsbury, USA, she had overseen the publication of countless bestsellers, including the beloved Harry Potter series. Her love for storytelling and commitment to excellence had earned her widespread admiration and respect within the industry. On that fateful day, the Vaughns had set out on a rented speedboat, eager to explore the stunning coastline that Italy had to offer. Little did they know, tragedy lurked just beyond the horizon, waiting to shatter their idyllic day. As the speedboat glided over the water, the family felt at peace, laughing and enjoying the beautiful scenery together. However, they were unaware of the danger that lay ahead with their boat driver, Elio Persico, who was impaired by alcohol and cocaine. Persico, tasked with navigating the vessel safely, was allegedly distracted by his cell phone, oblivious to the dangerous path ahead. As the speedboat approached a larger sailing boat, chaos erupted in an instant. The vessels collided with a deafening crash, sending shockwaves rippling through the air. Adrienne Vaughn, who had been basking in the sun on the bow of the speedboat, was thrown into the water with jarring force. In a heart-wrenching moment, she collided with the propeller of the sailing boat, sealing her tragic fate. The horror of the scene unfolded before her family's eyes, leaving them paralyzed with grief and disbelief. Frantic cries for help echoed across the water as witnesses rushed to the aid of the injured. Adrienne's husband, Mike White, fought against the waves to reach his wife, but it was too late. By the time emergency crews arrived, Adrienne Vaughn had slipped away, her life extinguished in a moment of senseless tragedy. News of the incident shocked the literary community as colleagues and admirers mourned the loss of a beloved leader. Bloomsbury Publishing issued a statement expressing profound sorrow at the passing of their esteemed president, whose legacy would endure and serve as an inspiration for generations to come. Questions lingered in the air. How could such a tragedy have occurred? What led the skipper of the speedboat to operate the vessel under the influence of drugs and alcohol? And why was he allegedly preoccupied with his cell phone at the time of the collision? Italian authorities launched an investigation into the incident, seeking answers to these pressing questions. Blood tests confirmed the presence of alcohol and cocaine in Persico's system, painting a damning picture of negligence and recklessness. However, despite these discoveries, the full extent of his culpability remained unclear. Adrienne Vaughn's family, devastated by their loss, called for justice to be served. They entrusted the Italian authorities to conduct a thorough investigation, hopeful that those responsible would be held accountable for their actions. As they grappled with their grief, they clung to the memories of a woman whose passion for literature had touched the lives of so many. What if the skipper had refrained from consuming drugs and alcohol? Could the collision have been avoided, sparing Adrienne Vaughn and her family from the unspeakable tragedy? As the investigation unfolded, these questions lingered, haunting the hearts and minds of those left behind in the wake of the devastating boating accident.
The morning of December 6, 2016, dawned bright and beautiful atop Mount Warning near the coastal town of Byron Bay in Australia. 24-year-old American Sam Beatty and his girlfriend Michelle Segala, 23, had spent the night camping on the mountain's summit, eager to take in the breathtaking sunrise views. Little did they know the tranquil scene would be shattered by unthinkable tragedy. Sam and Michelle were just 8 weeks into an epic gap year adventure around Australia after graduating from the University of Denver and Fordham University, respectively. The couple had been working at Pop Market in Brooklyn before embarking on the trip of a lifetime down under in a camper van. Their social media posts depicted two carefree souls in love, exploring Australia's natural wonders and delights. But on that fateful morning, their dream adventure turned into a nightmare. As the first rays of dawn crept over the horizon, a powerful thunderstorm struck the exposed summit of Mount Warning. In a horrifying instant, a massive lightning bolt hit the tree that Beatty and Segala's tent was pitched beneath, sending an electrical current surging through Sam's body where he lay on the ground. 23-year-old Michelle watched in shock as her partner was killed right before her eyes. The searing bolt of energy left her with singed hair and minor head and neck injuries. But Sam had suffered catastrophic trauma. He was gone in a heartbreaking flash. For the next 3 agonizing hours, Segala was forced to remain huddled with Beatty's body, crying out for help that wouldn't come. Finally, 2 teenage hikers ascending the trail heard her desperate cries and went upon the harrowing scene. While one of the boys raced to summon emergency responders, the other valiantly attempted CPR on Beatty for nearly an hour before being forced to admit defeat. When paramedics finally arrived, there was nothing they could do for the young adventurer from Wisconsin, whose life was cut short in the cruelest of ways. A solemn procession carried Beatty's body off the mountain as the love of his life, Segala, was rushed to the hospital for treatment of her injuries and trauma. In a bitter twist of fate, Beatty's father was actually in Australia on a business trip when he received the knock on the door that no parent should ever have to answer. His beloved son was dead under unimaginable circumstances at the age of 24. The tragedy was chalked up to simply being in the wrong place at the wrong time. In the aftermath of the incident, Detective Superintendent Wayne Starling addressed the press solemnly, extending heartfelt condolences to a young man's family and loved ones. He recounted the events that unfolded, describing how 2 individuals had been peacefully enjoying the natural beauty of the area when tragedy struck, reminding everyone of Mother Nature's unpredictable power. As the circumstances surrounding the incident are examined, many are left wondering, in an era of instantaneous weather alerts, how could the couple have remained unaware of the deadly storm's approach that morning? Did they misjudge the risks of their exposed camping spot? Or did the chaos of Mother Nature's fury block any possible warning from reaching the oblivious hikers? No matter the reasons, a senseless tragedy stole away the bright future of a loving young couple pursuing their wanderlust dreams. While Segala miraculously survived, her life has been forever changed by the traumatic events of that fateful sunrise on Mount Warning. In the blink of an eye, Sam Beatty's adventurous spirit and thirst to drink deeply from life's wonders was extinguished on an Australian mountaintop by forces beyond anyone's control. Now all that's left are the memories of a life captured on social media. Images of him swimming with dolphins in the Australian tropics, wine-tasting adventures through scenic valleys, and fishing for sharks off the coast. A life of exploration and experiences cut brutally short. John Heathcote and Abby Lutz had embarked on a dream vacation to Mexico, eager to bask in the sun and enjoy the luxury of the renowned Rancho Pescadero Hotel. Little did they know that their getaway would take a tragic turn, leaving their families devastated and demanding answers. On June 13, 2023, the young couple from California was found lifeless in their hotel room at the upscale resort in El Pescadero, a tranquil village in Baja California Sur. According to preliminary investigations, Heathcote, 41, and Lutz, 28, had succumbed to the inhalation of toxic gas, and their bodies were discovered approximately 10 to 11 hours after their passing. The news sent shockwaves through their loved ones, who were left grappling with the sudden and mysterious circumstances surrounding their deaths. Abby's family revealed that she had been in contact with them days earlier, complaining of feeling unwell and seeking medical attention for suspected food poisoning. Little did they know that those would be her final communications before the heartbreaking silence. As the investigation unfolded, a chilling account emerged from the first responders on the scene. Fernando Valencia, a paramedic who entered the couple's room, recounted the harrowing experience to the audience of Good Morning America.
It was one of the worst experiences I felt.
Describing how both he and his partner began to feel dizzy as soon as they went inside the room.
Went out of the room as soon as possible, and I was afraid for my partner, because my first thought in mind, it was like, are we gonna die?
Fearing for their lives, they hastily exited, Valencia's primary concern being the safety of her companion. The incident raised serious concerns about potential gas leaks at Hyatt Hotel's oceanfront property. However, the hotel's management adamantly denied any issues with its infrastructure or facilities, including the presence of gas. However, a disturbing pattern of allegations quickly emerged from current and former employees. They claimed the resort had been aware of faulty gas detectors and alarms for months, but intentionally deactivated them because the loud warnings disturbed guests. Ricardo Carbajal, who previously worked as a night manager before resigning due to a pay dispute, confirmed widespread knowledge about the malfunctioning alarms and detectors. He even added that everyone, specifically those working in the hotel, was aware of the situation with the gas detectors, notably that they were not working correctly. 3 other employees, including a housekeeper who became ill just days before the tragedy from odors in the same room, corroborated the shocking allegations. They recounted overwhelming gas smells and concerns raised to management that were ignored.
Within minutes, it just hit me, this gas smell. Super overwhelming and unpleasant. So I called my server over and I asked to be moved to a different table. So I moved a couple tables over and the smell was still overwhelming even there.
One employee revealed they had detected unbearable smells of gas in room 534, the same suite where Heathcote and Lutz ultimately lost their lives. Another housekeeper said she was told not to worry about a leaking air conditioning unit in that deadly suite, claiming all was fine. While the investigation remains ongoing to determine if negligence played a role, the couple's families are beside themselves over the horrifying way their loved ones perished during what was meant to be a romantic getaway. Tears welled in Lutz's sister's eyes as she delivered a heartfelt message to the public. Expressing shock and profound sadness over the loss of their beloved Abby, she spoke of Abby's adventurous nature and compassionate soul.
Abby was a light to everyone around her. She always had a smile on her face. It is our hope that more information will come to light to explain what happened to Abby and why.
In a plea for support, she requested thoughts and prayers from those whom Abby's life had touched. A probing inquiry into potential safety lapses regarding the hotel's role is likely to be conducted. If the allegations prove true that occupant safety was knowingly compromised, severe legal and ethical consequences could arise. Was this tropical resort more concerned about profit margins than addressing legitimate gas leak dangers? Why weren't preventative measures taken after employees raised repeated red flags about odors and malfunctioning alarms? Could more stringent safety protocols have saved the lives of this young, vibrant couple? The victims' families and the traveling public deserve answers to these disturbing questions. In 2015, Catherine Chappell, a renowned visual effects editor for Game of Thrones, left her American home to support wildlife conservation efforts in South Africa, captivated by the beauty of the African wilderness. Born in December 1985 in Westchester County, New York, Catherine lived with her family before graduating from Hofstra University in Long Island. Her career in visual effects took her to Vancouver in 2013, where she quickly established herself as a talented editor. Catherine interned at MSNBC during the winter and spring of 2008 before joining Scanline, where she contributed to some of the most popular entertainment projects. Her skillful touch graced hit series like Game of Thrones and blockbuster movies such as Captain America: The Winter Soldier and Divergence. Her outstanding work on Game of Thrones earned her a Primetime Emmy Award for the episode The Children in the 4th season, marking her as a rising star in the industry. Drawn by a passion for wildlife conservation, Catherine embarked on a journey to South Africa in 2015. Her mission was to support Wildlife Act, a dedicated conservation charity, by contributing to wildlife preservation and raising funds. On June 1, 2015, Catherine's expedition led her to Johannesburg's Lion Park. Accompanied by a tour guide from Calabash Tours, she embarked on an adventure that would forever be etched in memory. Little did she know that the encounter with nature would result in a tragedy that would shake her family, friends, and the world. With her guide by her side, she embarked on a journey to experience the majesty of the lion encampment. Drawn by the allure of capturing a fleeting moment of wildlife magnificence, she opened her window to take a picture. A decision seemingly innocuous, yet it would set off a chain of events that would prove devastating. In an unforeseen and tragic twist, a lion seized the opportunity the open window presented. With a sudden and swift movement, the majestic creature lunged forward and attacked Catherine, inflicting injuries that would prove fatal. The guide, Pierre Pogeter, displayed immense courage in his efforts to protect her, risking his safety to battle the lioness in a valiant attempt to save Catherine's life. However, despite the bravery exhibited by Pogeter, the encounter ended in tragedy. Catherine Chappell's journey was tragically cut short, and her promising career and boundless potential were extinguished instantly. The encounter's aftermath left a trail of sorrow in its wake. Catherine's family was plunged into heartache as news of the incident reached them. Her boyfriend, Grayson Hoare, shared a tearful moment with mourners, recounting his premonitions. He had warned Catherine about the challenges of her venture, urging her to remember that she was only a city girl and to exercise caution in unfamiliar territory. At the memorial gathering, Catherine's sister, Jennifer Chappell, delivered a poignant eulogy that captured the essence of a young woman who had embraced life with unmatched enthusiasm. Jennifer described Catherine as fearless, her spirit untamed by the boundaries of convention. Amidst the collective sorrow, an eyewitness, Ben Govender, offered a first-hand account of the tragedy. He narrated that the lioness stood up on its rear paws, balancing on the vehicle. Then it suddenly lunged forward and grabbed Miss Chappell through the window. Ben added that he saw Pogeter diving into the passenger seat and punching at the lioness. In Ben's narration, the lioness retreated from the car with blood dripping from her mouth and paw after the first bite, but the horror wasn't over yet. The animal staged a second, even more devastating attack, and with that attack, Catherine's face was torn apart. The right side of her chest was gone, with half her shoulder in the lioness's mouth. Ben witnessed this attack while sitting in a car behind Chappell's vehicle. He took a picture of the lioness when it leaped at Catherine's window, not realizing what would happen next. The guide, Pierre Pogeter, displayed bravery beyond measure, yet the toll on his well-being was immense. The stress, the violence, and the adrenaline culminated in a heart attack that would forever link his name with the events that had unfolded. Hospitalized, he reflected on what he deemed the worst experience of his life, a testament to the indelible impact of that fateful day. The aftermath of the tragic incident at the Lion Park stirred a wave of public outcry and scrutiny, as questions were raised about the circumstances that led to Catherine Chappell's untimely demise. Amidst the grief and heartbreak, the actions and responses of those involved became the focal point of intense debate and analysis. As news of the incident spread, the Lion Park Authority stepped forward to defend the park's practices and regulations. Their assertion was clear. Visitors were consistently instructed to keep their windows closed within the park's premises. This cornerstone rule was designed to ensure the safety of both visitors and the animals that roamed freely. The incident, however, ignited a storm of public outrage, amplified by the fact that Catherine Chappell was no ordinary visitor. Her association with the entertainment industry, particularly her contributions to projects like Game of Thrones and Captain America: The Winter Soldier, lent her a certain celebrity status. Many wondered how such a tragedy could occur to a person of her stature, especially when she was accompanied by a guide during her visit. However, the deed has been done, and Catherine can never be brought back from the dead.